So hello everyone and welcome to the Method Academy webinar. Today we will talk about rapid consumer surveys. My name is Michaela, I'm based in Berlin, I'm from FastTuner. I've got my colleague Maria who's based in the UK with me, and our lovely Anastasia who's working for Bell Group, who will share some insights today. So a bit of housekeeping. If you have questions, anything you want to comment, anything you didn't understand, please feel free to use the chat and drop us a line. We will answer about 10 minutes after the call, or for 10-minute window after this webinar, we will answer all of your questions. All right, Maria, let's start. So you may be familiar with some of the myths you can see on this slide. And my question to you is, are they really true? We will debunk all of them in the next 30 minutes, I tell you that much. Very exciting. So in order to be effective with DIY research and in order to integrate it into your entire cycle from product idea all the way to the launch, there are some important things you need to know about DIY research in order to use it as an effective tool. So it must be used at the right time with the right audience, for example. We will share with you when and with who to research. Questionnaires at the heart of your research projects are so important, and the questions have to be spot on in order for you to get the results you need. So last but not least, interpreting the data you can get with DIY research can be really scary because you don't want to make any mistakes. So we will show you how to easily use and draw actionable insights from the data you get. And so your decisions will be spot on. So Maria, when would you recommend to use DIY research?
Well, I would say three things you can see on this slide. So if you need fast results, if the outcome doesn't require very advanced analytics, and if you need actionable results that you can immediately apply to make your business decisions. So here we definitely would recommend to go for DIY, and it will definitely save your time and effort. And Anastasia, what maybe you can share the typical situation when you would do DIY research in your company?
Yeah, sure. So basically, this is when we need, for example, a quicker Q&A on the smaller segments, and we don't have time or necessarily money to set up a huge one. When we need to do a concept screening and narrow the list of 20 crazy ideas into a list of 10 crazy ideas that could potentially be narrowed down further, and then research in the full research process. So when we are also checking the global innovation in the small market, or when we just work with a really small market where we need to take decision fast and where we are kind of in the more entrepreneurial startup mode, for those markets, this research is really the best solution possible.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very, very common amongst our clients to actually what you mentioned, to use the research. It's like very versatile, but it's like, I love how you phrase it as entrepreneurial. It's really about being entrepreneurial, being, you know, like kind of looking like foresight, and also being agile as well. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. And so how to choose the right method to research. And when you think about market research, sometimes people get really overwhelmed because they think about like there are so many methods, which one to choose, and it feels complicated. But actually, leaving aside data analysis and A/B tests, we have just three main ways to research: is observation, interviews, and surveys. And basically, that's it. So observations and interviews fall into the qualitative method territory. Qualitative mean that they primarily focused on learning why and focused on understanding. So it's all simply about formulation of your hypothesis. If you don't have a hypothesis and you want to come up with some ideas, use qualitative methods. And once you have your hypothesis, the next step is to validate them. And here, quantitative methods like surveys, polls, or experiments are all about validation. So you can test your hypothesis to understand, is it good or bad? Or like, you know, Anastasia said, if you have like lots of ideas, you need to prioritize them or to choose which ones are the best. You definitely can use surveys as well and tests, and to choose the best option out of it. Or you can also use it to evaluate the results of already launched product or commercial campaign, for instance. I can give you examples. So for instance, as I said, you have certain ideas you came up with, and then you define which one to choose, or you want to learn about your target audience. Like Anastasia said, like you can run a small usage and attitude study, like what people think about the category, how they use it, what barriers and triggers, for instance, and you can kind of quantify them by running this survey.
And maybe Anastasia, you do this as well, you guys, but if you have a product that is already in the market and it's not performing, you can actually, before you pull the whole product off the market and all your efforts are in vain, you can actually find out, using this type of research, what needs to be tweaked in order to make this product gel with your target audience. So Anastasia, maybe you do this as well. Can you share some experience?
Yeah, I remember we did this in Portugal last year. We evaluated via Fastuna, one of the Fastuna methods, one of the products that were not performing, just to quantify, because we already have our hypothesis. So we line hypothesis, we knew it's either packaging or it's price or it's this and this and this and that. And we put it in the poll just to see which part is bigger an issue that we can deep dive and try to fix. And it was also very fast and very efficient, because it was the end of the year. We needed decisions fast, and we needed to know where to streamline our further research and marketing and sales efforts, and where to start to fix the issue. So totally it can work, and it worked for us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing that experience with us.
Yeah, so that's, as Mikhail and Anastasia said, DIY research is really, really versatile. So we will focus specifically on the surveys in this webinar, and we will, and as I said, like I think the good point to kind of keep in mind that those surveys, they can use for anything really, for innovation, product design, for like, you know, brand checks and brand building, and for advertising as well. And if you need or want to deep dive into this information further, so you can, and also learn more about qualitative methods, we all have it in the Method Academy website, and the link, our tech guru Marat, he will just post the link in the comments, so where you can find it.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised if you, for example, incorporate DIY surveys into the innovation cycle. You'd be surprised if your gut feeling tells you this product will be a success, and everyone around you tells you no, it's not. Then this type of research can really help you to back up your gut feeling. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so it's beautiful everywhere in the cycle.
Yeah, I love to say, like, prove your gut feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, let's debunk some myths about the service that really take time and efforts, and you need to know market research by heart to run them. So actually, there are just 5 simple steps to get your survey done. And sometimes I just want to point out that sometimes people think that running the survey is all about running the questionnaire, but actually it's not true. If you immediately start thinking of what questions to ask, that might confuse you, and then you might feel that it takes too much time and effort. So actually, we suggest you to start with defining what are your survey objectives. That means to clearly define what problem are you trying to solve and what decisions need to be made as a result. So in big company included Bell Group, for instance, the managers will always write a short kind of brief before the survey starts, and it always will start with the background and objectives. So to do this, so to understand, you know, what decisions can be made, you just need to identify which stage in the circle, in the product development cycle you are at. So it's just 4 stages. There's an idea stage, testing stage, development stage, or post-launch evaluation stage. So and a survey can be effective method in all the stages. Maybe not very much at the idea stage where you might use observations and interviews, but for the rest is definitely survey really, really handy. So for testing stage, for example, your objective could be to understand the attitude of people to an idea or product or feature or advertising. While for development stage, we might want to learn about the attitude of people to specific options of the product or features of the product, or specific, you know, how to tweak your advertising, you know, and the individual elements. And while you go to the evaluation stage, you know, you can learn afterwards, after the product you launched already or you add your commercial. And so you want to learn more about people's experience with the product, you know, and their people attitude towards the advertising. The second step is to define your target audience. And by the way, if something is unclear, please type your questions in the box, in the chat below, so we can take them after the presentation. So the second step, as I said, is to define your target audience. So yesterday, we were just like, Michaela asked me, what would be your just one tip if you give to people about how to approach thinking about your target audience? And my personal tip is think about your potential user, think about people, you know, that might use your product, and think about their demographics, which, you know, think about where they live, and think about what their key needs are. And demographics is important because, you know, the attitudes varies with age and gender, you know. And for instance, if you have the product, I don't know, study courses for kids between 12 to 17 years old, you might think about your target audience as parents for those kids, right? Because they pay for this and they might make a decision. But you won't interview people from 18 years old. You might think about people from 30, 35 years old who already have more grown-up kids, right? But not too old as well, you know, so between somewhere 35 to 55. So, and then think about geography, sorry. So where is your target market? So if you're very localized, so you might want to interview, obviously, people in this area. But if you're big international brand, and we work with many of those, you might have a lot of markets you want to interview. And here is all markets might have some individual, you know, approaches and attitudes. So pick up the key markets and see the differences between them. That's really, really important. And also it's important to recruit people that have a need for your product. And here my key advice would be is always think wider than you actually think. And we're in Fastuna, we're big fans of Byron Sharp book, How Brands Grow. I was personally very lucky to have, you know, to actually talk to him, because he was lecturing us in my previous company. So he actually shows a statistical proof why targeting wider audiences help brand a new product to win in the market. And you can see this quote below about brands grow by focusing on new customer acquisition, driven by increasing mental and physical availability and resulting in behaviorally loyal buyers. So for the quantitative study, your target audience for the product would be all the potential users, not just the current users of the category or the brand or the product, but consumers that you might need your product even theoretically, you know, and not necessarily those who just use them now, and those as well, but also think broader. And I want to ask Anastasia, for instance, because I know that you guys launched series of vegan products last year. So whom would you target?
Yeah, so yeah, we are working a lot on the plant-based field, and exactly as you said, whenever we research anything, we are not addressing our questions only to vegans or people who naturally go for that product in the first place. Because it's a very small group of people with a very specific needs, and also knowing that our objective for those products is to offer them as a healthier and more sustainable alternative to buyers of actual full dairy cheese. So that's why obviously we will go for the broader target of people who are flexitarians, for example, or for people who are potentially open to try dairy-free alternative of the regular dairy product, and this will be our setup target for this research. And obviously not excluding vegans, of course, but not closing on that target only. That would be too narrow and too not representative of everything else what's going on in the market.
Yeah, I think there's about 4% of vegans in Germany at the moment, so that would be a very, very narrow target group.
Yeah, it's also for especially for the growing categories. You would definitely look at the potential buyers. And I would say I'm not vegan, but I replace many products from time to time with vegan alternatives. Okay, let's just play. So imagine that you are making an application for generating recipes depending on what is available in your fridge, and your market is the UK. Which parameters would you consider to define your target audience? Okay, so what are your suggestions, Michaela?
Well, I would definitely have quite a broad target group. So I would choose males and females. I would also say everyone who sort of potentially owns a fridge from an age group, possibly quite young-ish, but not too young. So when people start moving out, in this country, it would be about 20. I think in the UK it's probably similar. So I would choose 20 to about 65 years old. And I would definitely make sure they have a mobile phone or some sort of mobile device they can install an application on.
Yeah, I agree. I would say, I would look also the same kind of, profile, but it's pretty broad, I think.
Oh yeah, and you added who have been cooking at home for the last months, of course, because that would broaden the audience as well, right? Because I could be living at home but still do my own cooking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on because I'm cautious about time. As your favorite part, Michaela.
Oh yeah, I love that.
So once you have your research objectives set, your target audience defined, then you can go and write your questionnaire. And I would want to ask Anastasia, because she's a guru in writing questionnaires, actually. Can you share with us what are the biggest challenges for you when you're composing the questionnaires?
I think the biggest challenge always when it comes to DIY research or regular one is the how many things your internal stakeholders want to pack into the one small questionnaire. There are always 1 million questions and always things like, can we ask this and that and one more thing on top of everything. So yeah, the challenge is to pack all this thinking in a very short and very concise questionnaire, because on the DIY platform we are limited with number of questions, but also the attention span of our respondents limited. So it's not recommended anyway for any research to have a long questionnaire. That's why my tip is to never go into the question by question conversation with your internal stakeholders, but focus on the main objectives and try to ask them the 3 big things or 4 or 2 that they want to know out of this research, and then draft the questions to make sure they deliver to those 3 main things.
I love it. I love it because it's like it's just like, it's a great tip as well. So to think about 2-3 things, maybe 4 maximum, and just focus on them. That's it's also, I love this phrase. Our co-founder, he says, like, nice to have, must die. So no nice to haves, just spot on questions to answer your key objectives. Michaela, I know that you have a few tips you want to share with people about how to compose the questionnaire.
Yes, because Maria and Anastasia, you would be surprised at the quality of questionnaires we get at times. And we do hand-holding during the setup of the questionnaires for people who are not sure. So because the platform is designed for anyone to use, so you don't have to be an expert in setting up these questionnaires, we help you with that. But 1 or 5 tips, these are my favorite ones. You have to give clear instructions. So be clear about what you want your respondents to answer. For example, what color do you like best on the label when comparing these 3 samples? Please choose the one you prefer. Very clear instructions. So don't leave anything open for interpretation when you set up these questions. Then be single-minded. So don't ask, what color do you like best and why? So stick to the question and say, what color do you like best? Full stop. The next question should be, why have you chosen this color, for example? So then designing answers that reflect the question. You think, oh, that's easy enough, but you'd be surprised how many times this is done wrongly. For example, if you ask pet owners, what type of food do you feed your dog? Your answer should not be Royal Canin or Pedigree, because that's a brand. So instead, it should be meat or dry kibble, etc. So you should be really aware of that. So design answers that reflect the questions, very, very important. Then you have to think simple. When asking questions, keep it as simple as possible. So if you make it complicated, people will switch off and they will drop out of the questionnaire. They don't want to think about it, or they will answer anything. So you will not get the results you want. Keep it very, very sweet and simple. And if the questionnaire is too long, as Anastasia said, you have a limitation on questions you can ask, simply because people will drop out if the questionnaire goes on and on and on. So if you design the questionnaire, keep it short and simple, and also with the questions itself. So one tip I really, really like to give people, when you set up the questions, strike out all the filler words. So set up the question is very precise with no filler words, no yada yada in there. So, and then avoid creating bias with a question. So for example, if you ask people, what positive impact do you think plant-based food has on the environment? You are telling people already it has a positive impact. That will not give you the answers you really want. So instead ask, what impact does plant-based food have on the environment in your opinion? And then either give them an open answer or give them preset answers so you get the answers you want. So these are my 5 tips. If you stick, or 6 actually, if you stick to them, you are pretty fail-safe with your questionnaire to start with. Wouldn't you agree, Anastasia?
Totally.
Anything I missed out?
No, I think it's really complete. It's perfect.
So Maria, you set up this little game here.
Yeah, so you guys, I pull up the question and you say, is it good or bad?
So Anastasia, what do you think? Do you like your job, and do you think it pays well? Good question or bad question?
It's a good question.
So of course, it already tells you like your job, and this way you're already biased. Your answers are already biased. So it's a good question in general, but you should not ask that way.
Wrong answer. It's bad question because it's 2 questions in 1.
Oh yeah, true. You see,
I got you.
I didn't do a checklist. Yeah, you got me.
So what about this one? Many people have already donated to charity. Have you donated in the past months?
Wrong question, I know.
Yeah, it's not good question either, because it's like you already, it's very biased and you make people feel guilty.
Yeah, I haven't donated this month, by the way.
Oh, bad for you.
So how unique is this idea? From 5 very good to 1 not good at all. Looks like the perfect question, right? I wouldn't see anything wrong with it.
It's just kind of
Yeah, the question is good, but the answer is not.
Yeah.
Because the answers should be very unique, not unique at all, right?
So it should always mirror the question. So the word is unique and it's not good.
Yeah. So how essential do you think that this product has a what?
Nutrigenomic what? Balance?
Yeah, well, definitely very good question, as I cannot even read through. So don't use these words, guys. Like, be very simple in your questions.
Yeah, keep it simple, because people won't look up what nutrigenomics means, and they have no idea what you're talking about, so they can't give you an answer.
Yeah. Guys, I want to pause here because I know that Anastasia needs to leave us in a minute. So I just want to pause and say thank you, Anastasia, for your, wonderful sharings and what, for your experience and staying with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys for inviting. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Anastasia.
Bye. Yeah. And we'll just, for those who are patient, we will continue with 2 last steps.
Yes. Sorry for running the time a little bit over.
Yeah,
we're always excited. We are too excited about what we are doing. So
I always like, it's always when we talk about this kind of how to set up the survey and the questionnaires, it's all, I always get it too carried away. So now after you get your questionnaire done, so you now ready to run the test. So, and the first thing you might think about is actually how to recruit research participants. So there is like a couple of ways. You can either use panels directly or but if you like it simple and don't want to bother how to find the right people, you can use special rapid survey tools like ours, for instance.
Yeah, so definitely.
Yeah, where you would need just to program your questionnaire while the platform supplier will take care of finding the right respondents for you. And that's it.
And it's also because our platform, for example, comes with set KPIs. So you can actually look at and compare your results over the course of time as well, which makes it a beautiful tool to also monitor progress over the course of time. The questionnaire itself can be programmed really, really quickly. So it really is a tool also for last minute requests. When you don't have time, you're actually off to your holiday and you get a last minute project, then this is a perfect tool to use. So if you want, go after this webinar, check it out, register on the platform. There's no sign up fee. There are no fees. You can just sign up and have a snoop around and see how it works. And if you have any questions, just ask us at any time, because we are very approachable and explain it to you.
Okay, after Michaela went into her selling mode, we're coming back.
Sorry. Sorry, I'm just so excited about it. I can't help it.
I know. Well, there are quite a lot of tools, right? We are just one of them. But it's good to know, what different tool can offer you, actually.
Yeah.
So so then basically what is great with those platforms, you just sit back and relax while your survey is running, and you get results within sometimes within just a few hours. And then you have everything to analyze your results.
And this is actually the analysis what a lot of people are scared of, because as I said before, you don't want to make mistakes. And DIY tools are pretty safe because you cannot go wrong with the analysis. It's so clear. It's kind of like it really is. One of our clients once said, "Oh my God, it's made for idiots." And he's right in a way, because it's just fail safe. You have it black and white, your answers, and we'll have a look in a minute how that looks like.
Yeah, so we will share some tips how to make your analysis spot on, because still, it depends on what the supplier provides you with. Some suppliers, some panels provide you, some platforms provide you with kind of funky dashboards. Some panels just give you a raw data. So, but you know, you always would look on those 5 things when you think about analysis of your data. And so the first one, always be focused, keep the research objectives in mind. And of course, you need to define your decision criteria because it is important for your analysis. We won't go into the detail how to do it in this webinar, but again, you can log into Method Academy and it's free, not log in, but just go into the website and read about it in more details. In a simple terms, what you want to achieve and the steps to get there is just like, this is your decision criteria. So for example, if you have your objective is to increase your sales by 40% and you want your new product to help you with this, your decision criteria might be linked to purchase interest. I always say, you know, there's always real people behind numbers, and think about it when you analyze the result, and seeing real people make your analysis enjoyable. And so it can be really directly linked to your storytelling. So if you think about, I don't know, Maria going there, buying your product, trying your product. And so it makes it real, you know, it makes it exciting. So always use the storytelling. So what is important, especially nowadays, and when you have like a lot of no time and a lot of internal stakeholders, so you work with the teams that need to make decision based on the research, is like Anastasia said, like make your recommendations actionable. It always counts. So if you say 40% of people will buy your product, what does that mean? What does that mean for your, you know, further development plans? And this case is very handy to actually use norms or benchmarks. As Michaela said, some of the platforms like ours, we do provide some norms based on the like kind of aggregated data we have from all the service. But it's also useful to use your own benchmarks. So your benchmarks can be, you know, products that you already launched, or or commercials you already launched, you can compare with them, or you can compare with the competition. So how your product performs versus the competition as well. So yeah, and that's basically it. You know, you just keep it simple, keep it focused, and use a bit of storytelling, and yeah, that will be a success. And we just, in the end, we just want to give you an example of how we approach it in Fastuna.
So this is my favorite example, because this is actually a real product someone tried to launch. And it's a chopstick fan, as you can see. And we did a study on this with 100 consumers in the UK. And you can see the results are clearly not really, you know, giving you much room to improve this the actual product. So it doesn't seem to be the product that's the problem. It's very clear, people understand what it's there for, but what else can you say about the idea and the criteria, and what story can you tell from just looking at what you have here, right? And as you can see, you also get with this, so you already know, you can tell, you know, okay, my idea wasn't great. Now, had we run this study in China, for example, these results might have looked completely different, but this study was run in the UK. And one of the main things in the UK is how many people use chopsticks on a regular basis, and, you know, and eat ramen. So
yeah, and again, think about, even looking at those figures, think about your story behind it. So well done for making that story clear, the marketers, right? But then people didn't like it because it wasn't relevant for them. So it's not for me. That means that your target audience should be more narrow when you market those, like, if you decide to go with it, you know, yeah, you definitely need to review your target audience. It's not believable, so people don't believe it's going to work, right? So it's already kind of give you, though it's pretty, yeah, this uniqueness is still below average, but is kind of 64% still perceive it's pretty unique. So, and then what is great is always ask, even in the quantitative surveys, always ask why. So you can get the feedback from consumers. And those are the real quotas from verbatims from the study. And that here you can see that why people actually didn't like this product. So they say, well, it's like, it looks heavy. And so they were thinking about, it's not very ergonomic, it's not very good in use. And it's also silly, anyway.
Yeah,
so,
and it might cause splashes around the table. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, but
people do.
Yeah. So, and then, yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, so we are done with our main presentation. I hope we managed to help you debunk all those myths we mentioned in the beginning about DIY research.